Do you know those mobile game ads that are clearly targeted at women and show off puzzle games about mysterious mansions that could hold tantalizing secrets? At least in my experience, every single one of those games ends up being a greedy merge game or a generic Candy Crush-esque match 3 in a flowery box. Still, none of them have any satisfying stories or puzzles to solve. If you felt betrayed by the promise of these ads, I am thrilled to tell you that Botany Manor may be exactly the game you're looking for, and it's actually real.
Noisy pixel.
Botany Manor casts the player in the role of Arabella Green, a female botanist in the year 1890. Her big family house is only occupied by herself as her grandmother has recently passed. However, she left Arabella with the mansion and a treasure trove of unfinished research into strange, marvelous plants. Each plant needs a specific condition to grow, and it's up to the player to assemble the proper pieces together to create the necessary reaction. The game is a puzzle adventure title that very frequently reminded me of Gone Home, with a minimal presentation and strong art style that guided the player on a low-stakes adventure through a big, weird house. The very start of Botany Manor is a bit of an odd choice, as it places Arabella into a smog-heavy greenhouse that had me checking my graphical settings, but once the smog clears up and the gentle music kicks in, the vibe is immaculate, and it remains throughout the short experience. Being a puzzle game, I don't want to go into too many gameplay details, but the puzzles are as chilled out as the atmosphere. Some are a bit harder to wrap your brain around, but none are hair-rippingly difficult. For the most part, the new puzzles are given to the player in waves, and they are encouraged to fully explore the new environment available to them to gather clues before approaching the solutions one plant at a time. For being such a small title, the quality of life features present make the puzzles even smoother to handle. The book that Arabella is filling with her research also contains maps of the parts of the manor the player has seen and a complete list of clue locations for each chapter, so the player knows where to find whatever they've missed. Each clue only pertains to one plant, and there are no red herrings, and you can, and should for an achievement, even sort the clues into each plant's page with the game telling the player if they've got every associated clue right, and this even removes those clues from the list of options for the other plants. While you can't instantly pull up the various posters and book pages that you've already found, their locations are also marked in the book, and the mansion is not so big that it would take longer than a minute to run back and forth to something you need to take another look at. Botany Manor is deliberately designed to present puzzles that are satisfying to solve but not frustrating to get stuck in, which is an excellent tightrope. I was never disappointed by a solution. The backdrop to this adventure, the plot, revolves around how I introduced Arabella earlier. She's a female scientist at the end of the 19th century. While there are no other characters around to interact with directly, as the player explores the mansion, they'll find a lot of evidence that the societal misogyny of this period is something Arabella is, and has been, trying her hardest to rail against, as she struggles to be taken at all seriously by the people who ought to be her peers, and is frequently basically told to stay in the kitchen. The message is firm but not condescending, and the post-credits conclusion made me tear up and punch the air a bit. It isn't the primary focus, but the level of care put into such a subtle story was appreciated. If I have any fundamental negative critique of Botany Manor, it would probably be that it was simply over too quickly. I completed the game in around 3 hours. If you aren't the kind of person who's always holding the run button the way I am, it'll probably be closer to 4. I have no issue with short games, but I admit that I was hoping that the manor would hold more secrets or a twist in the plot, which is pretty straightforward. It is on Game Pass, which is an excellent place for titles like this, but I can't help but wish there had been another chapter, as the last set of plants is pretty spectacular, but the game doesn't particularly feel like it's building toward an ending. Botany Manor may not be a life-changing experience, but it is a deeply charming and immersive title that I finished in one sitting without breaking a sweat. The low-detail art style makes the pops of color and foliage stand out and entice the player. The puzzles are sometimes challenging but never frustratingly so, and the background story is well told and politically charged but not patronizing. For a first-time project from Balloon Studios, it shows a ton of promise, but even taken on its own, it's an easily finishable delight. Noisy Pixel is giving Botany Manor an 8 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth and subscribe to keep up with all of our future content.
Noisy pixel.